Hello and welcome back to the Student StarCraft IR Tournament weekly broadcast. I am your host, Insanity Spreader, aka Josh, here to bring you the next installment of watching InsanityBot play through the Terran Brood War campaign. We are in missions 5 and 6 today. Mission 5 is a unique mission in this campaign as there are two versions of the map. There's version B, Birds of War, and version A, Ground Zero. So depending on how one completed mission 4 will determine which version of map 5 is played. So we did complete the mission destroying the physics facility, so that would mean Insanity Spreader would play through Ground Zero. I do want to show you the beginning of Birds of War, as I do think it is interesting, and I do want to kind of show off how InsanityBot went surviving the first start of this mission. So we are given a base with a number of structures to start with, a barracks as well as a bunker. We have a few outposts with missile turrets along the outside of our perimeter. These missile turrets will be engaged by a few battle cruisers each, and then those battle cruisers will move in to attack our main base. So in order to help the player combat this, the game gives you a series of 3 dropships with Marines, Ghosts, and Goliaths in each of them. So the idea is use the Ghosts to lock down the battle cruisers, and then the Marines and the Goliaths do damage to help kill them. So InsanityBot at the start of this did not actually know how to use the Ghost lockdown ability, as that was never something I had to do in the multiplayer, as InsanityBot only builds Ghosts versus Zerg, so it did take a little bit of special attention to try to start off this mission. Unfortunately, I haven't quite ironed out lockdown to a T yet. There's still the issue that you'll see with the medics, where if a Ghost launches the lockdown and still has energy, it tends to launch a second volley of lockdown on the same target, which is far from ideal. Occasionally they won't, but for the most part they do double lockdown, so that still needs a little bit of fine-tuning. But fortunately it was enough to get this mission started. Those did get 3, so that's nice. But then these 3 are left completely unobstructed. So this beginning portion is still a little subject to RNG, as sometimes the Ghosts aren't as accurate with placing their lockdowns on enough targets, and I lose my defensive units faster than I would like to. But as you can probably tell, having battlecruisers fly into your base throughout this mission is rather difficult and stressful to deal with, as there's a lot of high ground, obstructed vision, so Goliaths have to do a lot of running around while battlecruisers are sending Yamato cannons from the darkness to destroy structures and kill your units, that kind of thing. So rather than deal with that, we're going to do Ground Zero, which is the nuke version of this map. So right off the bat, you'll see that InsanityBot isn't actually harvesting or taking any action as he was in the previous one. That's just because this entire base is about to be destroyed, and rather than have to deal with the consequences of that and having the game deal with losing all of these units that just barely get added, to kind of avoid any oddities that might arise given this strange initial scenario, InsanityBot instead just doesn't bother taking any actions, just sits, waits for the scenario to play out, and then we'll begin the mission once we have just the command center, SCVs, and a few Marines left. So those initial outposts on the outside get nuked, and then the Ghosts will funnel in here, blow up this entire base, and then we'll start the game afresh. If you are looking for kind of a speedrun tactic, you can get spider mines and I believe a single vulture out before the Ghosts come in to nuke this base. So if you're able to body block the Ghosts enough, and then place mines down in very specific locations, you can save, I think, about half of your base, and a lot of these units that get dropped off here. And in speed runs, you'll see people take like the half that gets saved and go finish the mission with that half. But InsaneBot's not going to bother with that. Instead, he's just going to wait until he's given the starting units you're meant to have, and then he's going to start playing this mission for real. So these SCVs get dropped off. We'll rescue them. We'll start running around, building our initial supply depots, our structures, and then we'll start playing this mission out. Gets a little lost for a moment as he's trying to build both a bunker, or not a bunker, but a barracks and an engineering bay, and he happened to queue them up on the same spot. There is code in to try to avoid that, but sometimes it does not quite catch it. But there he goes. He building his supply depot, repairing up his command center, got his engineering bay and barracks underway. We get the engineering bay early just to slap down a turret around our main base to help give detection, just in case any ghost comes wandering in sooner than we'd like them to. But as soon as we start getting supply, we'll build a couple of SCVs, we'll come up and we'll take this natural base, and then we'll get the map going. So that initial scenario where all those nukes drop, funny thing, because initially when I saw this mission get played, I assumed that the AI wasn't constrained by normal gameplay rules and stuff of that nature. So I didn't really think that the ghosts that came into the base and launched all those nukes needed any silos or anything of that nature. I just assumed they were able to launch nukes because it was part of like a little in-game cinematic sequence. But it turns out when you load up this map in a map editor, there's actually like 12 command centers and nuclear missile silos all slapped in the fog of war over here. They're just sitting out in the open, and so they are there for the ghost to be able to launch nukes, and then as soon as that sequence plays out, all the command centers are destroyed, and the player's none the wiser. Same with, because when you initially look at this, you realize that your main base has a engineering bay, and missile turrets are far faster at building compared to spider mines and vultures. So you may have the idea of like, oh, if I can just slap down a couple of missile turrets and have some defenders to like body block and kill the ghosts, you'll be able to, protect your base from that initial fall of nukes. But to combat any of that sort of cheese, Blizzard actually has hidden burrowed zerglings all over your base in between the structures, specifically to make this entire area unbuildable until after the nukes fall. So that's just kind of a funny method they had to kind of stop the player from doing anything. But I guess they didn't expect anybody to effectively use, a single vulture and a few spider mines to cancel out their finely crafted initial scenario. Well, that SCV is going to be trapped for the rest of his life, which is unfortunate. You hate to see it, but I don't think you'd be really playing Terran if you didn't get an SCV stuck at some point. We're getting our base saturated up here, getting this commander center up and running. We'll tag on an initial geyser. So I mentioned before that the battlecruiser version of this map is significantly harder than the nuke version of this map, and that's primarily due to we, on average, on this map only see one more nuke get launched past that initial section, and usually it's at this natural base. So after the refinery gets built, a couple of missile turrets get added on, and when we first start harvesting, a ghost will come and usually nuke this base from over the wall. And we'll lose the SCVs that are here, we'll lose the missile turrets, but like the command center will survive, the refinery will survive, and then we'll just kind of rebuild and move on, and then that's usually the last nuke that we see here. So all in all, that's way easier to deal with than, battlecruisers flying from this dark high ground. Oh yeah, and there it is. So yeah, we're gonna see that version of this map. I have seen rare occasions where the ghosts will come down and try to nuke our main base, or they'll like come in and lock down an SCV because they feel like it, I guess. But this time we'll see the nuke fall, which all in all isn't really a big deal. We only had a couple of SCVs here. It just sets us back for, you know, our missile turrets that were acting as protection around. But we'll come up, we'll repair our command center, we'll repair our refinery before it burns down, and we'll be just fine. On a rare occasion, there's like a second nuke that's announced to be launched, but usually by that point we have, you know, tanks, vultures, Goliaths. We have detection in the form of comsat stations. So by the time the second ghost ever comes around to try to nuke our base, we're far past the point of it being a threat, and by that point we're usually moving out on the map and being aggressive anyway. And unlike Mission 4, the last mission we saw, we actually don't get attacked that much on this mission. You may see an initial attack from blue on our main base here, or maybe like a couple units come up and try to attack the natural. But for the most part, once we go aggressive and we start pushing on the map, all of the opponent's efforts will be focused on trying to attack our main force, which works perfectly for us. Oh, you know what happened? Yeah. This SCV is assigned to go repair the command center, and he's stuck. So that's never going to happen. That happened because there were no SCVs here when, you know, after the nuke blew up everybody that was here. So it grabbed the next closest SCV that it thought was available, and it happened to be this man here, who is stuck. So this command center is going to burn to the ground. Oh, don't worry, we got 200 seconds to really make full use of this. So we're tagging on more supply depots. We'll go up to 5 factory off 2 bases. We'll get this academy for comsat stations, and then we will add on an armory to get those upgrades underway. Spider mines are almost done, which will help deal with any invisible enemies. Yeah, and when this command center burns to the ground, we should be able to just immediately replace it. So I'm not too worried about it, and I'm going to let it burn, because it is what it is. 3 factories done here. We'll get a starport to get a few science vessels for detection going. Blue's going to come try to attack our natural here. We'll lose the siege tank, but everything except for the fire bat survives. Nice. The only way this would be saved is if a missile turret was damaged, because if it's just a normal structure like a refinery or command center, InsanityBot only assigns 1 SCV to go repair it. But if a missile turret or a bunker is damaged, it'll pull up to 3 SCVs nearby to go repair that defensive structure. And then if there are structures that still need to be repaired, it will use those 3 to go repair it. So if the blue attack came in and touched this missile turret, you would see 2 SCVs immediately repair it and then turn to repair the command center. But unfortunately that did not happen, and that was the only scenario that would have saved us from the embarrassment of seeing this burn to the ground. Starport finishing up, 3 factories going, adding on the armory, another armory. Oh, that's a second nuke. Oh, yep, there goes our natural. I'm assuming the ghost got killed because I'm not seeing a nuke fall. Factories getting added. He may have a building still in queue. Like he may be wanting to add on a science facility before queuing up a base to be taken. But we'll see. He might, if he's stuck, it might require a reset. But I want to see if he's able to work this out before. Yeah, okay, there we go. He's queuing up a base. This SCV should build it. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Natural has been retaken. Attack from red coming in. They're going to chase our offensive units up while a defensive squad comes down. Units popped out, took care of most of them, except for this last Marine. So yeah, that was that was certainly not ideal to see our command center get burned to the ground, but it's the problem that occurs when you have unaccounted for scenarios. So if someone gets stuck and they're ever assigned as a repair worker, probably should have something in place to deal with that. As you can see here, InsanityBot doesn't, and that led to a domino effect of failures, which is very unfortunate. But hey, we'll move on. And fortunately, it's not a large enough failure to prevent us from having to, you know, restart or go back to the drawing board. So we're able to keep going just fine. We're up to 5 factories now. Got a science facility. We tack on 2 science vessels if we ever have the gas for it. Unfortunately, because we're so good at our macro cycles and we're getting up to +2 weapons and armor upgrades, we rarely ever reach 225 gas to build a science vessel. So although it would be nice to have them for their defensive matrix ability, we're just not in a position where we can really afford the gas to take that. Yep, there's +2 weapons started. So this bridge here, this is the final boss of this mission, which sounds funny considering we just started moving out on this map. But this bridge has caused more pain than anything else on this map. So the problem with this bridge, it's not the spider mines, it's not the defensive units across, it's the fact that our siege tanks will move forward, they'll see an enemy unit, and then they'll plant themselves in the center of this bridge and siege up, and then just sit there, and then all of our units behind it will just start vortexing and glitching together and just overall slowing way down as we're trying to push across. And it's just, this bridge causes so much slowdown on this mission. So because the siege tanks begin to move across, they'll siege up to blow up these structures, they'll siege up to deal with reinforcements from blue that are coming to try to defend the bridge, and it just leads to just unnecessary slowdown. That's so hard for me to watch as the programmer, because like, man, I really wanted to just move smoothly, but like things like lockdown, things like siege tanks remaining sieged in one position because the enemy keeps trickling one unit at a time to reset that timer, just, oh, it's agonizing. But yeah, once we're across this bridge, we'll be pushing forward just fine. And as we begin this attack, we never really get attacked ever again. So, and even if we do have a few units from blue come try to attack like our main base, we'll have a really healthy number of spider mines protecting our flanks, so we're not really in danger of being attacked. So since we build a ton of SCVs to handle all of these mineral patches, we'll actually mine out of our main base relatively quickly, and then we'll want to come up to this top left corner and the secure base that's up here, which will be nice because there's a third gas that can really help improve our tank production as well as get our upgrades to their final potential. So we're tacking on the last few supply depots to get up to 200 supply, but the push across the bridge is really gonna take a while. So this vortex will continue, and like the switch will flip where all of the vultures, all of the Goliaths will immediately think, hey, we're probably stuck, so we're gonna throw ourselves towards our objective, which normally would be good, but because they can't get past the siege tanks, units will begin to glitch on top of one another, and then an occasional unit will pop forward, run up, get killed, and then get replaced from the factories back home. And right around the time we get across this bridge and really start our push will be around the time that we'll want to take this base. So what will happen is InsanityBot will see, oh, I don't have any units waiting to be filled up that I can conveniently pull to become a defensive squad for a new base. So instead it'll go grab a squad from the front line and say, hey, you're a defensive squad now, go defend this base. And so all of these units will finally get across, only for one squad to turn around, come back across the bridge to try to come over here and clear this base, which will cause a whole new mess of congestion that hopefully won't take too long to resolve itself. But yeah, this bridge right here, this is the single longest piece of slowdown that we have on this mission. So once we get across, we'll push up to the second area that'll slow down, but not nearly as much as that bridge. It's right here. There's a choke point right here that our siege tanks will slowly push through, because they'll siege up because there's a lot of Reds units up in this area. They'll usually also kind of arc their siege tanks around this area, just kind of naturally, because we'll be feeding units through here. So they'll siege up in a nice defensive arc that will make pushing through this choke rather difficult and slow. But we're getting across this bridge. All the defensive structures are dead. So now all that's left is to move our units across before blue trickles in, like, you know, single units to gunk up our progress again. These two tanks here are trying to siege, but they are not able to do so. I don't know what's happening here. Hopefully this fixes itself soon. That would be... Because yeah, I don't know. They're stuck trying to siege up, but I think because they're like layered just so on top of each other, they're not able to finish sieging. But alright, so we're setting an SCV up to try to come take this base. We're going to see that there's a bunker and a couple of Goliaths up here. And this is going to require us to send a squad over to deal with it. Fortunately, oh, this is nice. Unless the tank dies. Okay, so if this tank is able to make it over here to kill this bunker, that'll be great. Hopefully it doesn't die before then. It's two other tank brethren that are probably in a squad across the river. Hopefully are able to make it across. One HP. Alright, he's doing great. Yeah, we're really not able to deal with this bunker with just like an occasional vulture or Goliath. So we'll be pretty reliant on that tank getting up there. Oh, that tank moved. Oh, and another tank took its place? Or maybe I just saw that wrong. It's probably the same tanks.
Your forces are under attack. Upgrade complete.
Alright, well, the units that did make it across are pushing up. They'll just keep clearing that side as best they can. I think our siege tank got killed by a spider mine, which is very unfortunate. It should be replaced. The one I didn't click stop for is moved. I think it just eventually got bumped out. I want to see. So hopefully when these 3 tanks unsiege, or no, maybe it's that one. Maybe when these 3 tanks finally unsiege and move, and this is no longer being stacked on top of, maybe it'll finally be able to siege up and then unsiege and move. But yeah, this is what's caused me the most anxiety on this mission, which is rather unfortunate, because there's a lot of other fun things of TVT and tank pushes. We're at 3-2 weapon upgrades. Defensive matrix to keep that tank alive. Oh yeah! Alright, he's able to work through it. I did click stop, but I don't think it did anything, so he was eventually able to resolve whatever was causing his aneurysm. So we'll continue to feed SCVs one at a time over here until that defensive squad finally works its way back across the bridge. Alright, move. Clear the way. Siege lines working great. Yeah, and once we take this third base, this new gas will be very beneficial for our efforts. But yeah, this is also a thing where a blue will kind of filter one unit at a time to this bridge, and so a tank will be like halfway across it, a random fire bat will appear, the tank will siege up to deal with the fire bat, and then just cause a new blockage. So, always an adventure. Alright, this tank I believe is part of the defensive squad. He's trying to get across, but there's just constant traffic filtering over as we continuously lose a few units, so our factories rebuild those units. Stray fire back comes. But yeah, spider mines doing their job. Siege tank's finally gonna get up here to deal with this bunker, so that's good to see. We do have units making their way all the way up next to the objective, so yeah, you'll see as soon as we kind of get our tanks up into this area and really start destroying these structures, Red will have pretty much exhausted all of their units, or at least a vast number of them. So as soon as we clear this last choke point, it's really smooth sailing from there. So we just have to clear that last checkpoint and then we'll be golden. A couple of missile turrets up here, but that's nothing. This base will be able to get built up just fine. We'll also take this center base because at this point our natural is low enough where we'll need to take a new one to maintain that constant 2-base production. Unfortunately, this base doesn't have gas, which is what we really need, but it's close enough and it's next to all of our units where this is far safer to take than something, say, like the bottom right corner. Siege tanks pushing their way forward. Third base is up. We'll tack on a new geyser, which will be awesome. Get some defensive structures going. Siege tank will hang out with a couple of Goliaths, make sure that it stays safe. Although, because we don't have to deal with battle cruisers, there's nothing really that can come over here and deal with this. So, yeah, this mission, it's like, Red will actively send battle cruisers over to this third base and then down to your natural. consistently. Like, even when you're pushing into this area, it's still the AI will still send units to go harass your mineral workers. So doing this version of the mission is so much easier because once we're on the offensive, we really don't have to worry about defensive units at all. You know, with the exception of that bunker and a couple of Goliaths that were over here. Alright, traffic jam is fully cleared now that people are no longer trying to go back and forth across this bridge. Beautiful, you love to see it. Siege tanks finally have room to move forward in a line. Red still has a number of units in this immediate area up here, but our siege line will come up and help clear that out. Blue's got a Goliath over here. Yeah, it's funny because Insane Bot really should put this defensive squad to protect this base on the right side of this base, but he doesn't. He sticks them to the left, and so their defensive circle where they'll engage hostiles doesn't include like a small area right here for whatever reason. So if an enemy siege tank comes and plants itself right here, that siege tank will kill this entire mineral line. We'll have a repeat of Mission 4 where we'll have a siege tank with like 55 kills. But fortunately for this mission, that doesn't happen as often. I'll say that, and then a siege tank will show up and just absolutely massacre everybody. But for right now, minerals are being harvested just fine off 2 bases. We're at 200 supply as our siege tanks push up this last ramp, really get into this last area. Yeah. And we should finish this off before we ever need to go take a 5th base, which I believe he tries to take this one next, as it is technically closer than the bottom right corner, although the bottom right corner I would argue is easier to defend. There's a base over here that has a bridge that Blue can push across, but if you have a few siege tanks set up near the bridge, they'll never touch you. Alright, things have cleared out enough where the Goliaths and Vultures are able to start trickling forward, which should clear up some room. Three is certainly an advantage over the 1-0 opponent. And then once we're back here, there's rarely enough defenders to be able to really push us out. There's a couple of Goliaths up on high ground. They might get ferried down by some siege tanks, but for the most part we're pretty golden at this point. So this Terran Command Center, just as I mentioned with previous neutral units on buildings, there's an occasional crash that can happen when this is blown up that the API really doesn't like this blowing up. That's caused a number of crashes that have been a pain in the butt to try to deal with, especially because at this point it's usually taken Insanity Bot, you know, anywhere from like 25 to 35 minutes to clear through this map. And so having to deal with a crash that happens at the very end of a mission is really obnoxious. So fortunately we didn't have any crash there, so we'll see NORAD 3 come out to surrender to the UED as Minx is going to admit his defeat. NORAD 3 of course doing 50-50 to air and ground. And then we'll also see Jim Raynor show up with his ship, just to compare to a normal battlecruiser of 25-25 each, so NORAD 3 is doing double damage. It is funny, for Jim Raynor's flagship vessel that shows up here, you'll have to see its anti-air laser damage, as it's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, we'll finish up this lengthy cutscene, and then we'll move on to Mission 6, which is probably the most interesting mission to code the beginning for. I'll explain more about what I mean by that when we actually get into it, but it is certainly unique in its own right. Alright, here is the Hyperion, Jim Raynor's ship. He does 30 to the ground and 250 to the air. I mean, I know this is literally just to kill 2 wraiths in 2 shots, but like it's still really funny to see his damage at 250 per shot. Alright, so they will vortex away, and we'll be on to the next mission. Sorry, I said vortex, it's dimensional recall. So Mission 7. Mission 7 is the only Terran build mission where you have to float in your structures to start your initial base. So basically, you don't have any units. There's this red Zerg base here on the map that will be engaged by a teal Terran, just to kind of show off the new Valkyrie unit for Brood War and how good it is versus a lot of Mutalisks. So these units are not ours to command yet, but after a certain amount of time they will ally to us. And then we will be given these structures here, and these are what we will use to build our base. So this mission was another one that was unique in the fact that I had to pause Insanity Bot running anything until I landed the structures. And that sounds easy enough, but again, it was another instance of having to kind of rethink the initialization process for the bot in order to, you know, get it to initialize everything else of where the bases are on the map, you know, what enemies we're going against, what our build order is going to be, but not actually running anything else until we actually have a base to call home. So we landed the structures we'll be using, which will be going bio for this mission, and then because supply depots don't fly, which is their biggest design flaw, honestly, in StarCraft 1. Forget their size. If we were just able to lift off the supply depot, man, what a different world we'd live in. So we'll work on building up supply depot to try to catch up with all the supply we have. These siege tanks here will just kind of remain on the high ground as passive defense for our main base. These Valkyries, Insanity Bot, much like the Wraith, doesn't have logic involved to really handle Valkyries at this time. So instead, he just tells them, hey, just come sit over in this general area, and they will defend from any Mutalisks that try to fly over. Our initial bio squad comes up here and tries to clear this outpost. Unfortunately, they're rarely successful, but it's just something that, because Insanity Bot doesn't have a bunker here, there's an uncaught case where what he should be doing is he should be building up his bioforce, you know, around his main choke position where he's going to build the bunker. But because the bunker doesn't exist, and this build order is kind of specially designed for this mission, that logic didn't get transferred over like I initially thought it would. So if there's no bunker and there's no natural, he goes and tries to clear the natural, which normally would be fine, but he does it with just the initial number of units he has, which isn't enough to fully clear that area, so he ends up just throwing these units away. So that's something I could go in and fix, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference. It just, you know, wastes a bit of supply early on, So it slows the start, but it wasn't something that was causing, failures. So it's not something that was dealt with at the time. So another optimization for the future. Unfortunately, our main base here doesn't have a great layout for these mineral fields. We have a fair number of patches, but there's only really 5-6 of them that are easily mineable. The rest of them require the SCVs to go around the outside to the back to be harvested, or for this back right patch all the way around the right side to fully, to be able to harvest those minerals. Oh yeah, and so we're given 2 science vessels at the start of this mission, and because InsanityBot's not expecting to have random vision permanently on a section of the map, what will happen is these vessels know that they have Irradiate as an ability. Oh. Well, we don't have any units in this bunker. Alright, we're building some though, so they're going to come over quickly to defend this. We might lose this tank. Not really a big deal. Like I said, these siege tanks are more of just kind of passive protection, but usually everything is caught by this bunker. So the defensive matrix might run out. He'll probably die. We'll see if that happens before the scout is targeted by the bunker itself. 2, 1. Oh, that's unfortunate. It's all good though. That Dragoon's not doing anything. Marine's trying to path into the bunker. Is being blocked by the 3 SCVs that are repairing it. Yeah, so as I was saying, so InsanityBot has these vessels, it has Irradiate, and so it's looking for targets to irradiate. Especially like a cloud of mutilisks or a defiler. So what will happen throughout this mission is InsanityBot will get enough energy to cast an Irradiate. It will see a juicy Zerg target out on the map in this central area of vision, and so it'll go try to irradiate that target. And as a result, it will kind of throw away these initial science vessels. And that's just due to InsanityBot's not expecting to have just permanent vision of this area. So it leads to kind of stupid behavior of science vessels flying way forward and getting picked off by Dragoons. This initial base area is also not very sizable and does not lend itself very well to Terran structures. So what will happen is InsanityBot starts placing down, these supply depots and tries to, group them up in a smart way. But what will happen is it reaches a point where it can no longer place down supply depots with enough room for units to maneuver around them. And then it really struggles trying to find a place to put supply depots anywhere else in this base. It doesn't want to put them near the barracks because it also knows it's trying to stack barracks near each other. So what ends up happening is he gets stuck queuing up supply depots, and when he reaches a certain point, I eventually just built in a failsafe where it's like, hey, if you're continuously trying to stuff supply depots in your base, come build it out here, and then it'll start like a new stack. So little parting gift for that overlord. So it'll reach a point where he will hit his supply limit, and then he's going to start banking minerals because he's trying to find a place to build a supply depot, but he's not able to find one. So eventually he'll hit that failsafe and he'll just start building supply depots out here, which will be a little harder to defend as it's kind of past the bunker's range. But between the enemy really liking attacking into defensive structures and our defensive squads, we should be able to deal with anything that's thrown our way. So this mission, initially I was planning on clearing the map completely. So if you're not familiar with this mission, so basically there is a Protoss in the top right section of the map that has this warp gate And since this warp gate is turned on, it's causing a brown Zerg on the left side and an orange Zerg on the bottom right side of the map to attack the Protoss as well as you. And the goal is to come to the very top right corner of the map, kill another Terran command center, and then once that command center is dead, you've completed the mission. So initially I wanted InsanityBot to clear the map, so he'd come up and he'd deal with brown first, he'd go kill orange next, and then he'd deal with Protoss last. But while this may not be a speed run, that was unfortunate. For some reason the medics were really wanting to run forward and left the Marines kind of high and dry, which was not ideal. So now the medics are going to die as well.
Your forces are under attack.
Poor first attempt at clearing out that area. So, but what was happening is there was an odd behavior where InsanityBot was like coming up to try to attack brown. It would kill a few structures of brown, then it would run down to the bottom right corner, attack orange, kill a few structures of orange, run all the way to the top left corner, kill a few structures of brown, run to the bottom right corner, kill a few structures of orange. And that was just due to, you know, InsanityBot trying to prioritize things that were close to home for, you know, its priority for attack. And rather than go in and try to like make a series of objectives for him to try to attack first, instead I just was like, you know what, we'll just focus on this top right corner. So he's going to do Bio, which does not attack super well against Protoss. Now this is unfortunate, we got both Brown and Protoss attacking us at the same time. Oh, nice. A little bit of crossfire. So yeah, instead of full clearing the map, we're just going to use our Bio and we're going to go kill this objective, which Bio does not do great against Protoss, but fortunately this Protoss AI does not utilize Reavers or Storm, so while it does have scary things like not Dark Archons, but Archons for us to try to deal with, there's no, you know, Reaver shots to kill our Bio squads. There's no Storm to really kill our Bio squads. So, since there's a lack of splash damage to worry about, we just stuck with Bio, and we used Bio to complete this mission. So what InsanityBot's trying to do here is he's trying to build up a small amount of Marine Medic to go kill this base, take the natural, and then once the natural's built, he worries about going out on the map and killing it. Unfortunately, because we've been under fairly consistent stress from Protoss as well as a little bit from Zerg, he's being really stingy with his units, so he's not willing to throw them at that outpost quite yet. And yeah, unfortunately our initial push did not go well because our medics were being uncooperative.
Where does it hurt?
Our medics just running forward.
Your forces are under attack.
Yeah, so we'll come up, we'll snag this bunker. This defensive squad, once it's not needed, will come up and help clear out this area, which it looks like we've killed the defender, so all that's left is a photon cannon.
Your forces are under attack.
So yeah, this should be sufficient amount to kill the photon cannon, clear the structures, and then we'll really be humming. Because this initial base, the mineral gathering, isn't great, but this base, this natural, has a very nice layout that will lend itself very well to mineral gathering. Biosquads clear it out, and we'll come up and take it and start saturating that base as well. Another reason I didn't want to go mech on this map, even though we are facing Protoss, is Bio is far harder to really get trapped in compared to, you know, bulkier units like siege tanks. So we're able to just kind of stick barracks in wherever they fit in this base, and the Marines and medics are still able to path through it just fine.
Your forces are under attack.
Oh, nice.
Don't give me
Valkyrie showing their worth, pushing off a Mutalisk attack from the right. Sir Queen comes and hits him with the ensnare. Unfortunately, this vessel's still alive, which will be nice when we move forward, as there are burrowed units and invisible units. Occasionally they'll fly up and they'll irradiate something of Browns just to irritate them. Space is underway. Once we start saturating it, we'll really amp up our mineral gathering, which will be great for our bio play. So yeah, things are going relatively well. Unfortunately, the vessel I was just lauding that it was good that it's alive gets killed, being an idiot. So that's unfortunate, but we do have another one, and we'll build more as our resources vamp up with our new expansion. So typically how this map plays out is once we get our natural base up and running, we'll start moving our squads out in the map. Our initial 2 pushes will get about here or so, and then we usually will hit pretty close to or max supply, and then we'll just push over and win. So it's really funny because this map, it always feels like it's so slow to get started, and then we're not making great attacks, and then the match is over. You know, it's just things are going okay, and then it's over all at once. So the speed run for this map is actually quite interesting. The absorber is blind; it is now useless. The speed run for this map is actually pretty cool to watch. So when you initially drop off these drop ships, you will come snag a couple of siege tanks, fill up the Marines, and then you'll use your initial 2 vessels to put a defensive matrix on these drop ships, and then you'll fly the drop ships up and follow this cliff line all the way over to the Protoss base, and then fly them up here to drop your units off. And once they're in this back area, for some reason Protoss doesn't really worry about them, so you're able to walk your units over and kill the command center within like 2 minutes. So that's a speedrun strat I've seen, you know, human players accomplish, so I imagine it'd be relatively easy for a bot to do it as well. But unfortunately Insanity Bot's not taking that strategy. Instead, we're just gonna put our boot against the enemy and just grind them until they are dust. We have 2-2 complete. We will eventually get 3-3 once our minerals catch up to our production. We'll also have to amp up our supply production, as we are not building enough supply depots to match our production rate. Hunter 1-2 still pushing strong. And then this is a thing where, so medics are told to blind detectors, which I only go bio against Zerg, so the only detectors that we're blinding are overlords. But in this campaign mission, it's the only time I've told Insanity Bot to use bio versus Protoss. And so something I didn't account for is that observer units for Protoss are also stealth. And since I didn't have to worry about overlords ever being stealthed or burrowed, it wasn't something I bothered to include in the checks. So you'll see medics, there'll be an observer that's not visible, be, you know, patrolling around, and then a medic will start running after it, trying to hit it with a flare. But we don't scan for observers with our comsat stations because we preserve those for, you know, more intelligence scans like Dark Templar or lurkers, that kind of thing. It's not ideal because, you know, there are occasions where you want to scan observers and kill them, but InsanityBot, more often than not, was just using all of his scans on observers that he was not going to kill. You know, like an observer was hovering over a cliff that we had defensive units near, yes, but those defensive units were never going to be in a position to kill that observer. So rather than try to figure out all of the different scenarios of when to scan for an observer and when to not scan for an observer, I just told InsanityBot, hey, don't worry about observers. They'll get caught by missile turrets or by science vessels passing by. But, you know, scan for other things. So this mission is a funny scenario where the medic will be chasing down the observer, trying to blind it, but the observer, unless it wanders into science vessel range, is never going to be visible to us. So it just leads the medic to run around, neglect the Marines, and then die.
Your forces are under attack.
Alright, our supply depot number is growing. Our barracks count is getting higher as well. I think eventually we do tack on a number of more barracks. I think we go up to like 10 or so for this mission. And then it's just constant Marine medic production. Yeah, the Protoss does have high Templar, but I've never seen them use Storm on this mission. Which works just as well for us, because having to try to Storm dodge would be quite obnoxious for us, so not having to worry about splash damage at all is far better.
Upgrade complete.
Alright, our initial few bio pushes have cleared out some structures, cleared out some defenders, but on the whole, still small groups moving forward at once. This is going to change pretty shortly here as our production is reaching its peak, and our supply is enough to really, you know, ramp up the number of units we're fielding. So this group at the front is going to take a few losses, but it's going to just continuously grow as more and more squads begin to fill up that space. Our science vessels, they've scanned and they've seen, oh, there's so many juicy targets over here. Go kill them. There's flares to be had. I don't know where this medic is going, but there's Zerg to be fought. But no, we're gonna kill Protoss instead. There are occasions where InsanityBot will get stuck on this ramp as it's trying to move its units, or its squads that are full out to go attack the field, and then it's trying to to stock up the units that are still waiting near the bunker at the natural to be full. But yeah, these units up here, they've kind of passed the point where they'll be bothered. There's like a couple of gateways on the right side, but once they get up here, there's like just an occasional unit that'll come over. But for the most part, we're pretty much in the clear to just kill this command center. That's why I say it's funny, because like we push forward with like 2 squads at a time, keep getting killed, but every time the squad will just like push a little bit further, push a little bit further, and then suddenly the mission's over, you know, and that was it. But yeah, so we have this lengthy dialogue sequence where Stukov betrays Duran. Oh no, sorry, I flipped that. Duran betrays Stukov, which will set up mission 7, which will be a bundle of joy that we will discuss next week, as it's the second no-build mission and probably the most inconsistent mission of this entire playthrough. So if you're interested in seeing some shenanigans, be sure to tune in next week when we go through that mission. But this is mission 6 complete. What's funny is, so the end of this mission, we have this dialogue sequence, and then a yellow dropship spawns from that blown up Terran command center. That dropship flies through this gateway, blows up, and then the mission is over. And while this is happening, about 50 Mutalisks for a purple Zerg spawn in the top right corner. And I remember fondly spending a lot of time with my brothers building like a ton of missile turrets to try to fight off this wave of Zerg, because it just seemed so massive when I was younger. But like, who knew? You don't need missile turrets, you just need 3-3 Marines. And these Mutalisks will just evaporate, because Marines are very good against Mutalisks. So that was all that time I spent building missile turrets before was all for naught. But yeah, so that's mission 6 complete. Certainly not the smoothest missions we've saw today, where there was a number of stupid behaviors that were highlighted, but on the whole we managed to play through them just fine, and we are on the final 2 missions. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check back for more next week. If you're checking back in just to see if there are multiplayer maps to be seen, or replays to be viewed, tune in later as we get back to the normal stuff later on, or if people have more projects to show, I'm sure that will come about as well. Thank you for listening to my rambling. I apologize that I'm not professional by any stretch of the imagination, but it is fun to be able to show this project off to those people out there that can appreciate the complexity of programming for something like this, and the joy in seeing it be moderately successful at playing through from start to finish without any or very few assistance. So I'll go ahead and cut it off here. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.